Hello and welcome to Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is Matthew Stoner.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a very special guest on today's episode. Steve Irwin himself, Matt Hobbie, joins us on the show. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, and Matt, we are having you on to talk about Skyward Sword. The re-released HD version just came out. We all hopefully had a chance to at least play a little bit of it. And we're going to dig into both the Wii version and the Switch version and talking about that. We got a lot of interesting news actually that happened. The Switch OLED pre-orders happened. Steam announced the rumored Steam Pal thing as a Steam called Steam Deck, which also had pre-order type things happening. Mm-hmm. Nickelodeon announced an All Star Brawl game that got the internet really excited. Just lots of other little things too. We'll cover all that in just a little bit. But before we do all that, how is everybody doing? How was your week this week?
Pretty good. I've had one hell of a goddamn day today. Really, just a couple days. As you can see now, we're officially in the David's Closet era of Super Switch Headz podcast. For audio listeners, I've moved to a new location, and this is my new like itty bitty office in my apartment. And many thanks to Patrick for helping me out with the move. You borrowed your dad's truck.
I borrowed my dad's truck and we left stuff in it. Oh wow.
Yeah. Right before we started recording, I like rushed over to Patrick's dad's house and like picked up this mic stand, which I had left there. But, yeah. Thank you very much for that, Patrick.
Of course. What about you, Matthew Stoner? How was your week?
That's me. Pretty good. I don't have much to complain about. My anxiety is through the roof while trying to pre-order that Switch and that Steam Deck.
Yeah,
but it's fine. I'll talk more about some other things that I explored over the weekend. Like I've been tinkering with like streaming and cloud gaming and stuff over the weekend, so that's been fun.
Very cool.
What about you, Matt Hobbie? How are you doing? How's this week been?
It's been a pretty good week so far. You know, Shark Week and Skyward Sword releasing in the same week. It's always a good time.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. See, that's why they made the Switch, is so you can play it in handheld mode while you watch Shark Week.
That's right.
Yeah. Also, are we going to be okay with two Matts on the podcast? Have we had two Matts on the podcast before?
I don't know. Thunderdome rules, right? Two Matts enter, one Matt leaves.
Yeah, by the end of the podcast, there will be only one.
Yeah. We're now a Survivor podcast.
Well, before we do the news and rumors and such, last week we talked about the Switch OLED and hardware revisions with Nintendo. And we got some great comments on that. On the Discord, Karuseta and KSBOKC kind of talked about how we discussed, this was tangentially related, about collecting and collectors and overvaluing things once people start collecting them in terms of baseball cards being worthless and collectors just ruining things and working in retail and that kind of stuff. Our friend Jeremy, Pokemon trainer Jeremy, said, yes, fave Nintendo podcast. Thank you, Jeremy. Hope you're doing well. And our other friend Dylan Muss on YouTube said, great episode, guys. Good to hear from you, Dylan. We should have you back on sometime as well.
Yeah,
and then
all you have to do to get a shout out on the podcast is just tell us we're doing a good job.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that.
Or if you're like Jeremy, just send me Evangelion covers and we'll shout out that too. So thanks for the covers from you, Jeremy.
So we appreciate hearing from all of our listeners and viewers. Please share the podcast somewhere online, tell a friend about it, leave us a review, send us a comment or a question. We're going to do a listener question show sometime, I promise. Subscribe on YouTube too. And then we'll move on to the news and rumors for the week, unless I missed something y'all want to talk about. Last week we talked about GDQ, which was happening. Game's done quick. The summer version, that is over. And they, I think, broke their own record again, which happens very often. They raised almost $3 million, I think, for Doctors Without Borders. Is that the one they do in the summer?
Yeah. They broke the record for streaming like virtual events. So like they've broken 3 million before for like live in-person events.
Gotcha.
But this was the first time that an online only event has it was like 2.9 million, something like that, which is insane.
That makes sense. Online only record.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's one of the things Matthew, you kind of mentioned the stress around this. Nintendo announced that the Switch OLED would go up for pre-orders on the 15th at noon Pacific time. They announced it that morning, like 3 or 4 hours, maybe more than that ahead of time.
Which was nice, right? Or
at least we had that.
We had something.
And then it happened, and I think I was able to get 2 pre-orders in. I canceled one because I was just nervously hitting submit on multiple retailers.
Mm-hmm.
What about y'all? Did y'all? I know David and Matthew, you did it.
Yeah, I got one. I pre-ordered a white one from Best Buy. Pretty excited for it. We've talked about whether or not we were going to get one before, so it was like kind of a foregone conclusion for me. Matt, you got one too, right?
Yep. Also got it from Best Buy. I think we're all, me, you, and Emma are picking it up at the same location. So we're going to have a Switch OLED in the parking lot of a Best Buy.
Yeah, we'll have a tailgate party for the white Switch. Matt, Hobbie, you were shaking your head. Are you not picking up one of these?
I am just going to wait till Old Faithful dies.
Yeah.
I usually play mine docked, so it doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That makes sense.
That is a very mature decision.
I got the red and blue one from Walmart, and I canceled the other order I made because Walmart has been going crazy and dropping the price of, after I agreed to pay $350 for this thing, they are now allegedly charging me just $300 for it. It's gone down $50 because of their aggressive pre-order. It's weird. Like it's, some sort of pre-order competitive price thing they're doing, but like I had already pre-ordered it, and I'm not complaining, but it just is weird.
I've been hearing that's for pretty much everybody who pre-ordered the red and blue version. I think the white version is still $350 and those aren't getting the price drops. I really wonder why that is, because it's the exact same console. I don't know if that's some sort of mess up internally, but they've now adjusted the price for hundreds of thousands of people probably at this point. So.
The demand is lower and they're trying to, I don't know, Walmart's just has so much money they can do that to entice people to order there. I don't know.
Yeah. What does it say about me that I'm not taking advantage of that and sticking with my white pre-order?
Well, the white one's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yours might show up with a bigger screen.
Patrick, unbeknownst to Patrick, he just ordered another normal Switch.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's cool though. I'm definitely excited for it. And I'm glad to get the white one because I have like a blue left and right and a red left and right. So I certainly didn't need any more of those colors.
On the Switch OLED front, Bloomberg put out an article sort of trying to price out the upgraded materials for this OLED model to kind of try to figure out how much per unit this would cost more. And they came up with a number of $10 more per unit based on the different components. Obviously, that's just sort of them doing their best analysis and speculation. Doesn't, mean anything. But then Nintendo put out an interesting tweet today, the day we're recording this, saying that profit margin claim is kind of incorrect. And obviously, why would they say that? Well, the speculation is to just kind of make investors realize that maybe they've dumped a bunch of money into marketing and other things, and the it's not like they're going to really make that much more money on this.
Wouldn't investors want them to be making an extra $40 per unit though?
I'm sure they would, but I guess what they're saying is, hey, we're not going to, right?
Right.
Because we spent, I'm sure, I would guess on marketing, right? A ton of money to so that that's not the cost of the Switch, but it's cost of doing business or whatever.
I mean, someone's got to pay for all those rooftop parties.
That's
Nintendo.
and then to film them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that guy in the hallway.
Yeah.
Um,
We didn't even talk about that last episode. That guy just like gets off of work, sits down in his hallway, and starts playing Breath of the Wild or whatever.
That's what you can
it was
do
Pokemon
if you have
Diamond
a
and Pearl.
Switch.
Yeah.
If you own a Switch, you can just play in your hallway.
Little does Nintendo know, I have my Xbox Series S and a giant plasma TV set up in my hallway.
Well, also on that same tweet, they said, of course, that this model is coming in October, and there are no plans for any new model beyond that right now.
Yeah. Well, they said a month ago there were no new plans for a new model. And
right
now here we are.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens in November.
Yeah.
But the same day, taking the sort of wind out of their sails, is that how you say it? Steam announced on July 15th, the day these pre-orders went up, that they have this Steam Deck device, which comes in 3 different varieties or models, or styles, if you will. I don't know. And then they were going to have this pre-order registration process where you have to have a Steam account that's been around since at least a month or 2 ago. And then you can register, pay $5 to buy one. And that, would y'all want to talk about the pre-order process of this first, or do you want to talk about the specs, or what? What do y'all think about this Steam Deck thing?
Let's talk that. Let's just talk kind of about the device, right? Like, I mean, I know Matt and I registered, right, to be able to. They're basically, you pay $5 to have the privilege to be able to buy it later, right? So I know we've both done that, and I'm very excited about that. But I think this, just in general, is awesome. I love that they're doing this. We've been talking before about different companies getting into the hybrid market now that Nintendo has kind of created that market within the gaming sphere. And I think that Valve makes perfect sense to jump into this right now. And I think that this is like a really great alternative for people who might want, who like the form factor and the function of the Switch, and all the people that have been, really wanting a Switch Pro that's more powerful. Like, here you go. Here are all the games that you want ported over to your Switch Pro. Like, you can run natively on Steam, So this is a very good thing. And I think more competition in the handheld market is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is a cool piece of technology. I think most people will probably use it for emulation. That's what it seems to be from the Twitter sphere and on Reddit. I think it's great. It's competition in this kind of market, in the handheld market, will be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks awesome too. I think the Switch has shown me that I really do enjoy playing handheld, and it allows me to game more often and in more places. And so, Steam has such a big library, and I don't game very much on my PC just because of the have to do it in front of the PC. And so I am very interested in this, and also the ability to then run emulators on it that's super cool too. That just adds to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, in order to do all this emulation stuff, like basically Valve is like allowing people to install whatever they want on it, right? Like, it's not a closed garden or walled garden or whatever, right? Like, so it's basically, they're like, yeah, so this comes with our custom Linux kernel, OS that we have on there, which then has like a compatibility layer that runs Windows games through, right? So that's, it's a little iffy there. There are some games that don't support it, specifically games that use anti-cheat features. A lot of those will need to get bespoke versions made for this Linux kernel. But it's like, they basically are like, this is a PC. Like, you can just you can just totally wipe the entire memory and install Windows if you want, right? So I think it's not going to be as easy as people think to just like load up all your Game Pass games and tons of different emulators and run Dolphin and shit. I think you're either going to have to partition it or like just wipe the whole thing and start fresh with Windows. But either way, it's really cool, and I think it's nice to see one of these companies doing this, especially at this price point. Like they're going to be taking huge losses on this thing because it's quite a powerful system for a very low price.
Yeah, I wonder for all those folks like using it for emulation, I wonder what the expectation is for like the instant on features. Like Switch is so good and all the other handhelds are so great because you turn them on, you're at the menu, select a game, you're inside of a game within 10 seconds. But if this is a PC, then do we have to wait for it to boot up? Is there a shutdown sequence? Maybe it's a more efficient OS on this Linux kernel. And it'll be really exciting for the first couple of months of owning it, but I wonder if over time that kind of barrier, that friction, that increases from like 25 to 30 seconds to a minute to like boot up, to start your Dolphin emulator or to start your RetroArch, to see if that kind of wears down people to come back to the Switch because it's so easy to get in.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not even planning on changing the operating system. Like what excites me is just like having access to, I've got like over the years, like through all these different Humble bundles and Steam sales and shit, like I've got like 390 games on my Steam account or something ridiculous, right? And so it's like, and tons of those games I wish were on Switch, like there's lots of like little indies that I still fire up my gaming PC, even though it's like way outdated just to play. So I'm excited to play that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that what you're talking about, Matthew, with the ease of use, that's where like this is not for your just average person, right? I think that this really does appeal to the higher end gamer rather than the more casual game. I don't know
real gamer you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the way to distinguish it is, but the more casual versus the more hardcore, or the like people who are willing to put up with that stuff and want to install things and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I love all that tinkering, man.
Hobbie, where do you stand on this thing? Are you interested in it?
I am not interested in it. I don't have any Steam games. I don't have an account, so I will just play these indie games when they come out a year later on my Switch.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough.
It does sound pretty cool being able to emulate on it and whatnot. I see the value in it, but I just am not interested.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's getting to what Patrick was just saying, it's like, and that's what I think, I've kind of heard this talked about elsewhere, but it's like, Valve is selling this thing at a massive loss. Like this thing has, 16 gigs of RAM, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? Like it is a PC, and it's a pretty good, well-powered PC. It's not as strong as like an Xbox Series S, but as far as handhelds go, this is definitely by far one of the highest end ones out there as far as specs are concerned, especially for this price. It starts at $399 for that 64 gig model. And they're going to be losing tons of money. So I think what Valve wants is to get people into their ecosystem. And I think what Valve is not going to be getting right off the bat is that. I think it's going to be big time PC fanboys or people that already have established Steam accounts getting this thing. Or like you said, Matt, people that want to like emulate on it, which doesn't mean buying Steam games and, them getting their cut of whatever those sales are. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out because it doesn't feel right now like it has that super widespread appeal. But it's also just being sold through Steam itself. It's being sold through their website. So maybe they're just trying to test the waters.
And you have to have had an account for a month or two. You couldn't just join and get one. So that kind of is a weird thing there. And also, like, I was able to order the Switch OLED with, like you said, Matthew, some anxiety. It didn't happen like on my first attempt or whatever, but it happened relatively quick. But the Steam Deck pre-order thing, I couldn't do it. Like it took me, I sat there for 30 minutes. I gave up. Every 20 minutes I came back and tried. And then
you still just didn't get one?
I pre-ordered one at the very end of the day, but it's like Q2 of 2022 as opposed to
that's mine as well,
December or whatever the original ones were. So that was a bit of a bummer. I mean, at the same time, whatever, but like I just felt like that process, IGN like had a hands-on with it or whatever, and had these articles about how they have this process to try to prevent, scalpers. And maybe it prevented scalpers. I don't know, but it didn't. It didn't help me.
It didn't though. Like there are people on eBay selling these things for like $1,000, and they're like, you'll get it whenever I get it in.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. I don't know that there's obviously just a problem of how to do this kind of stuff when there's a big demand, because it just floods these websites. And I was frustrated because, hey, I'm there on time. You know what I mean? Like, but like, whatever. It's
that
first
whole
world
process.
problems,
I don't think I got my pre-order in until like 55 minutes after the hour, or like 45. It was a really long time because David, you and I were talking about this on Discord. It's like unable to process your transaction, and then it was like, you've processed your transaction too many times. Try again later. It's like, what do you want me to do?
I felt totally gaslit by that.
So I had the same experience.
So all of this like experience of being frustrated with this, I still pre-ordered one, whether I actually buy one or not is up in the air. But it's like, what's the problem I'm trying to solve with this with the Steam Deck? And it's like, I want to play my games wherever. I want to have an emulation device. And so I've been exploring some other cheaper things to see if I can do it on devices I already have.
Fair enough.
And it's like, it was $5 down right now. You know, it's like, if the time comes around and it's Q1 2022 or whatever, and a lot of people have had hands-on experience and it's sounding like it's not great, and they're like, hey, you still want this? Like, you can absolutely be like, nah. But I think for now, it's, I want to see more of this shit. I want Xbox to do one. I want PlayStation to get back into the portable racket. It's like, this is just like this is just what always happens whenever Nintendo innovates, right? Like, every time Nintendo innovates and they do something new and it really catches on, everybody else starts up, right? And I think it's interesting now that we're seeing it from Valve and not from the other two, you know, because, you know, we had the Kinect and we had like all this accessibility shit. So it's like, it's great to see that is still the case. And it just shows that like Nintendo nailed it with this formula, and people want this kind of system. They want to be able to take it on the go, and they want to be able to slot it into a monitor. And, you know, they're just evolving that. You know, you can keyboard and mouse your games if you want. It's really great.
Well, unless there's anything else, we'll move on to some quicker news items here. Octopath Traveler, which was originally a Switch exclusive, had its 3rd anniversary, and on Twitter, the Japanese account teased something about a new journey in Japanese. So I'm trusting whoever translated this that's indeed what it said. So maybe that suggests they're going to make some sort of sequel to that game, which I would be all for, because I really loved that game.
Would that be? I mean, is it the same team that's doing Triangle Strategy? I
read some speculation on Reddit that it's not. It's a different team, but I don't pretend to know
maybe the Bravely
teams.
Default 2 team.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The Super Mario movie is among, I guess, a part of movies that are committed to go to the Peacock app after they go into the theaters.
Let's go. NBC Universal, daddy.
So I think that movie's set to come out next year, right? That's all at least as last we knew. It's last it was said. So it's not like this was specifically said to come to Peacock or anything, and there's no timeline or whatever. It's just that it would be in that same grouping of things that have been slotted.
Does NBC Universal own Illumination?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
But that's part of the deal.
Yeah, I think it was just some sort of Universal deal with whoever owns NBC, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they are. I don't know. Both owned by Comcast.
Looking it up. Nope. Yep. Yeah, they are. It's Comcast.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. Daddy Comcast. What's up?
So that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Hey, yeah. People might hate NBC, but everybody loves Comcast. No, I mean, this is fun. This is fine. This is funny. I mean, this is just like the future we're in. Everything's going to be all segmented onto these streaming services whenever they come out and they have deals in place. You know, streaming services are the new cable, and it's all going like that. I will say I did watch a movie on Peacock the other day. I mooch an account, a Peacock account off of a friend. But By the way, if you guys want access to my friend's Peacock account, hit me up in the Discord. I'm just kidding. I don't give that out willy-nilly. But I did watch Children of Men the other day, and man, that's a good movie. It's on Peacock.
Oh, that is
Peacock exclusive.
Well, there's been rumors of this, and I think this is still technically a rumor, though Bloomberg has reported on this, that Netflix is going to get into games. And apparently they have even hired some people from like EA or former EA employees and stuff like that to be leaders in this sphere that they're getting into. So it sounds like, if this report's to be believed, it's just going to be another part of your Netflix subscription. It's not going to cost anything extra. That they're just trying to,
at least now.
Yeah, right. At least sounds. I mean, and none of this is confirmed that it's even happening, much less the plan. But that's what Bloomberg is reporting, that it wouldn't charge anything extra. I don't entirely understand if, we know that they made that one Stranger Things game. If this would be new games, or if this would be kind of like Stadia, and like, you could play, I don't know, Assassin's Creed or something through it streaming, or if it's like Apple Arcade where you download games. I don't know.
I doubt it.
What do y'all think?
This feels like streaming to me, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that would make the most sense.
Just use the client that's already built into your smart TV or whatever. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I feel like you're thinking there.
Yeah, Matt, you've been fucking around with streaming recently. What do you think? This is a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about the average person who uses Netflix, they watch it on their smart TV, and it's one of the apps on their smart TV. And how is a person gonna like plug a controller into their TV? And some of them have Bluetooth, and some of them don't, and some of them support different Bluetooth profiles, and some don't support those features at all. So it's like, if Netflix is getting into gaming, like, who's it for? Is it the casual Netflix person who owns many controllers, or is it us, that person who has a Nintendo podcast? And you, the listener who listens to podcasts about video games.
Yeah, that's a good point that I hadn't even really thought about. But I do think a lot of people do watch Netflix like on their Xbox or on their PlayStation or whatever, right?
That's a good point.
Those will have their controllers already built in. But then it's also like, do you need games through Netflix if you have a gaming machine? Like, wouldn't you just get games through that? So,
have they announced that it's actual games that's going to be played, or is this potentially could be like a Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human type of situation where it's just a streamlined, you're just choosing what happens?
Yeah, a Bandersnatch situation.
They already do that with shows, and it seems like they like it, and that's why I feel like that might have been a stepping stone to whatever this is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them doing like a deal with Annapurna or something like that to have like cinematic game experiences exclusively for Netflix. So it's not, I see less of an Assassin's Creed and more of like these
like Netflix original games. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That actually makes a ton of sense. Either way, I think this is cool. I'm not like against this. I think it's a good idea. And I think that streaming games are the future. Right. And so if they are going to take off, I think that a big streaming player like this jumping into the ring and like trying their hand at it, I think I'm cool with it. I think it's a great idea. If Netflix didn't try out new things, we'd still be fucking getting DVDs in the mail from them. So I'm into it. And I say that as somebody who works for a company that just struck a line deal with Netflix. Love you, Netflix.
Everybody subscribe to Netflix.
Masters, does Masters come out this week?
Comes out this Friday, motherfuckers. Check it out on Netflix, July 23rd.
Shortly after,
you can control the characters. No, I'm just kidding.
If you buy the Mattel toys,
right? Yeah, they're amiibo. You just throw at your TV, and then it works.
This got the internet on fire because people like nostalgia for their childhood. A new game was announced: Nickelodeon All Star Brawl. It's coming out later this year. I think just a 2021 date. Basically, a Smash-like, featuring a lot of Nickelodeon cartoon characters from all your favorite Nickelodeon shows. And got a lot of people speculating about who's going to be in this game because they kind of seem to, they showed off a handful of, I don't want to say like secondary characters, but not some, for some of the shows, it wasn't like the main character, right? Like,
right.
And left room open for more to come in. So what do y'all think about this? Is this something it seems like a lot of people are excited about this. And so that makes me be like, okay, I guess if everybody's excited, I might play it too,
I think it's fun. I was talking with a talking sock on Twitter, and he was proposing like, why are people excited about this? And I was suggesting that like Smash is all this expectation and history. And this is like something that people can get excited about with like, we might get, I don't know, Ickis from All Real Monsters, or we might get some random Nickelodeon character from, I don't know, Mark Summers. I don't give a fuck.
I would love the game show hosts as characters.
I know,
That would
yeah,
be
me too.
hilarious.
And so there's so much room for like
The
hype.
big nose from Figure It Out. That's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not Figure It Out. Double Dare.
Double
Anyway,
Dare.
good-
Yeah.
continue.
Well, you can pick it. Yeah. I think all of these like fun ideas, the world is kind of limitless of what they could put in this game. And I think that's really fun for people on the internet right now.
Yeah, that's what it is to me, is right. Like this is a lot of people who are in there, depending, because they seem to, some of these shows stretch, a little like 15 years of people's childhoods, right? Like I was a little bit old when the first of these kind of announced, but I was still in like elementary school, I think, maybe middle school. And so I watched like Rugrats or whatever when that came out, and Ren and Stimpy. And so I have some feelings about those, but then some of these other shows that are also represented were for people who are 10 years younger than me or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like 90s kids are really excited about this. And I would say temper your expectation, 90s kids, because I think this is going to be a lot of like mid 2000s, like, or up to like recent Nickelodeon stuff. This is going to be like post SpongeBob stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, where are the angry beavers? And it's like, it's not going to, they're not going to be in this game. I mean, maybe like as DLC or whatever, but I don't know. I'm like totally so on this, because it's like, on one hand, I've always said it's just like there should be a Disney Smash. There should be a Nickelodeon Smash. There should be a Star Wars Smash. There should be a Smash like for like every franchise. You know what I mean? Because you could just do it and it would be so much fun. And all these different characters would have interesting movesets. And it's just a great formula, So I'm all for more Smash likes, especially ones that take existing IP and mash them together. I think that's super fun. But at the same time, let's not forget that there have been a bunch of shit ass Nicktoons kart racing games and like just a bunch of bullshit like shovelware Nickelodeon shit that's been flooding the eShop for the past 10 years. And don't think that this is going to be any different just because it's like a Smash game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is an incredible game. Does that mean you should buy the Nicktoons kart game? No. So it's like, definitely take this with a grain of salt. I think like, it'd be great if it's good. And I think it's got like the developers has a pretty good pedigree. But it's like, I don't know. I'm divided. And it's also like, I want like 90s Nick stuff, but I know that wouldn't sell with like kids, right? Because they don't know those fucking cartoons or those shows. So who's this game for? Probably not us, if we're being realistic. That's
Totally.
all I'll say.
Yeah. And there was an article on Kotaku the other day where they're interviewing the developers, Ludosity. They make like Slap City,
right.
and saying that they want to put it in competitions and make it competitive, and they're designing it with esports in mind, which I'm like, okay, all right.
It is going to have rollback netcode, which Smash does not have,
Good
which
point,
is
yeah.
hilarious. So that's funny.
Well, if it's good, right? Like you can have bad netcode. Still,
also, they said
probably.
it's going to have wave dashing too. So this is like, they're definitely. I mean, Slap City is like a legit Smash like. So
See,
Yeah.
David, you're almost on the hype train. You're like, you just,
listen.
you just bought a ticket.
I'm telling you, I'm divided. I have of two minds with this thing.
What about you, Matt Hobbie? Are you a Nickelodeon fan? Does this game speak to you?
Like you, I was early 90s when I was watching this stuff. So not really. I mean, isn't it like a $40 game?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I could have swore I saw somewhere, but I could be wrong on that.
No,
But I mean,
it.
we'll see how how it turns out.
Yeah. Wait and see.
No, get hyped right now and then be disappointed when it's bad.
I threw this in here because I thought it was interesting. I don't know much about this manufacturer, but Tag Heuer. Do y'all know how to say this? They make fancy watches. They are making a limited edition Super Mario fancy watch, which I think is a funny thing because you think of like a Mario watch as being like a cheap $5 toy watch, but this thing is like a nice timepiece. That's where we're at. Fancy Mario stuff.
Gamers are getting too wealthy for their own good. Spend stuff like this.
How much is this? I'm trying to.
It's sold out apparently already. It was like
it's $2,500
sold out between the last one. That's a great. I wish I had written it down before it got sold out.
I see it from hypebeast.com says it's $2,150.
Is that real? I was joking earlier.
No, that's how much it is. But people are selling it because it's limited for like up to 6,000 on the resale market.
Oh my God.
Is this the Sonic chain killer? I don't know.
Yeah. I just randomly was clicking on this website at the other non-licensed watches and they're all like $2,000. So like,
wow.
Yeah.
This may surprise our listeners, but I'm not like a fancy watch guy. And so I will be skipping this one. Well, it's sold out, so I'm not going to buy it off a scalper. I'll tell you that much.
The MOBA style Pokemon game called Pokemon Unite is coming out very soon on July 21st. So I guess that's the day this podcast will come out. So if you're out there listening and you've been waiting for this, go check it out. It's coming to the Switch that day. And then apparently it's going to come to the Switch first, which I think that's new news, right? Like this is also going to be available on mobile devices, but not until September. So I would have maybe expected the other way around, or simultaneous maybe. So that's interesting.
It's free. I'll probably try it out because it's free.
Can't hurt to try it.
Yep.
Sort of a League of Legends like game. We'll see how that does, if that becomes a big thing or not too. Yeah. They seem to want it to be.
Can't play Pokemon Unite on your Steam Deck.
Nope.
You can if you install a Switch emulator.
This got translated from Famitsu back, I think, closer to the reveal of Metroid Dread. There was sort of a Q&A with Sakamoto, the octogenarian.
He's not that old.
Developer of Metroid. And there's nothing particularly that we haven't heard out of this, but it's interesting. You can find Nintendo Everything has the translation of it, and probably some other places too. But I think that one of the interesting things that he was asked about is, if this is the end of the story, is this the end of Metroid? And he said, of course not. We'll keep making they'll keep making them if people keep buying them, kind of a thing. And he got asked a lot of these questions about like the cancellation and why they couldn't do it, which I think is something I'm really interested in. And he kind of dodged all those questions. Keeps saying that like it's technology, Mercury Steam is really good and they can do it. And it's like, but why? Like why?
Yeah.
He probably can't talk about that stuff. So.
I bet we'll get more from him on that front at some point. He's been already like more open about the development process than we get from most Nintendo games.
That's true.
So I would imagine we'll see something like that from him in the future. And then also, yeah, I'm just glad he said there are like I hope you look forward to future episodes. I'm glad to hear that he's not planning on stopping the Metroid series anytime soon. He just had an idea for the end of a story in mind. And I think it's cool to do that.
Totally. And then this isn't really new news, but it's kind of making the rounds that, we're hearing rumors again of Metroid Prime Trilogy just being finished. I think Jeff Grubb said this. And I think other insiders have said Nintendo finished this game a while ago and they're just sitting on it. And he brought that up again. So who knows? But sounds like Nintendo likes to do this where they have games and just kind of wait to slot them when it makes sense for them, whether or not that actually makes sense. But so that's another Metroid game we have can look forward to playing.
Yeah, it'll come out at some point.
Or replaying, as it is, just like our main topic for this week, which is Skyward Sword. That's all the news and rumors for the week. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk all about Playing through Skyward Sword HD on the Switch, and also kind of reminisce about the Wii version and that kind of stuff in just a minute.
More Wii ports.
And we are back to talk about Skyward Sword. So, Skyward Sword originally released about 10 years ago, November of 2011, for the Wii. And it's, like I said, about 10 years later, we get this HD version this past Friday, July 16th, 2021. How are we feeling about Skyward Sword in general, like both the Wii version and or this one? Everybody here played, I believe everybody here has played at least a little bit of both, right? Maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how are you feeling on it, Hobbie?
I love it. I really enjoyed it on the Wii, and everything they've done to it is, I think, quite a bit better.
That's my experience too. It's beautiful. It's a game that ages really well. Running at 1080p, whatever. We ran at like 480p or something like that. It looks great. The quality of life enhancements are also good, and the music, chef's kiss.
Absolutely, some of the best in the entire series as far as the music is concerned. Like that fully orchestrated score is just beautiful and holds up really, really well. I think you guys are right on the money. It's like, I also liked the Wii version, but I understand why a lot of people didn't like that game. It's a very controversial game in a lot of ways. Motion controls being a big reason, obviously. But yeah, I think this game is fantastic, and I think the Switch version just kind of makes that better in every way. Pretty much everything is improved. It's been streamlined. The quality of life stuff is like really, really helpful, and graphically it looks great, like considering that they didn't really retexture that much stuff. I mean, I think there are some like higher res textures, but it's like the art style holds up and it looks really crisp and it's colorful, and it's a very pleasant game to look at. So I'm definitely enjoying my time with it. And it's nice to play a Zelda game with proper dungeons again. This game has really good dungeons. So yeah, definitely enjoying this one a lot.
I think that what you just said, David, is like, I feel like this game's getting a lot of positive praise. And people are, after it got so much criticism leading up to the release of this, maybe for the reason you just said, like, Breath of the Wild is amazing, really great, but the lack of linear progression in dungeons, I think people playing through this or replaying it are like, oh man, it's really nice to have a game kind of have those elements. So I wonder about if that timing is causing that consensus to shift a little bit.
Well, it's like this feels like the Ocarina of Time formula for Zelda games kind of perfected, right? Like this is the most modern version of an Ocarina of Time style Zelda game. And it's like, I don't know that we'll ever have one of those again, outside of like, maybe like, I feel like we'd be more likely to get another top-down Zelda game at this point than we would be to get like a 3D Zelda game that plays like Ocarina of Time. And so I think it's really cool that this is available to play. It makes me wish that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker were on the Switch as well. But yeah, no, it's definitely nice to play a game. Not every game has to be open world. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just want a game that you can go through from beginning to end, and it's just a linear story. And I think that's totally fine and great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a total tangent, but you just opened up for it, so I'm taking it.
Sure.
I think that the trend in AAA games of just making bigger and bigger open worlds. I think there's maybe a little bit of a backlash against that, but there's also, at least personally, I feel a little bit put off by that. It's not that those games aren't awesome and worthwhile, but I don't always want to invest 300 hours in every game, and I want, or whatever, to feel like, not that I actually will, but to explore everything, or to feel like I'm not seeing everything in just those huge games. And I don't know. I'm rambling, so I'll shut up. We should talk about Skyward Sword.
No, that's totally what I was talking about. I think it's nice to have different kinds of experiences,
right?
And like we're gonna get Breath of the Wild too, and that's gonna be another experience like that, which I'm fucking psyched for, right? I think Breath of the Wild is a better game than Skyward Sword, personally, but it doesn't mean that I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And the story is amazing. It's still my favorite story in any Zelda game. So I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, well, we're just going to kind of talk about this very conversationally. So if there's anything y'all want to talk about in any order, go ahead and interject. But one thing that strikes me restarting this game and playing it is how much personality is in all of the characters. In like the beginning segment in Skyloft, it's Skyloft, right? Why am I?
Mm-hmm.
All the like other, I guess, what are they? Hylians? I don't know what they are. All the, other people you meet there.
Skyloftians.
Yeah,
I got
exactly what I was going to say.
I think the character designs are really great because, the shapes and sizes like I love Breath of the Wild's art style, but like when you think about like, are there any of the like characters other than maybe a few that really stick out, but every character here feels unique and sticks out and just kind of has a personality that just shines through their design.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. At first I was like, they're not going to add voice acting or anything to it. But then you start playing it again and you're like, they emote quite a bit. And I don't know if it's needed.
Yeah, yes, they really do emote really well with the just visuals and then whatever the little actual emoting of kind of stuff really helps.
They do the grunts, don't they? They're like I prefer that to like Pokemon Snap where they're like, okay.
They
like say something
dialogue
that's not bad at all. Yeah, just go. That's all you have to do.
I think like Zelda is probably one of my favorite written characters in this entire game because she starts out so strong with like such strong relationships, not only with Link but for all the other Skyloftians. And it's like a stark contrast with the Zelda from Skyward Sword and Zelda from Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild Zelda is like very regal. She's a princess at this point. And it's totally different versus Zelda from Skyward Sword. She's like a teenager and very like fun, but also like doesn't take shit. You can see her like arguing with Groose quite a bit. I just think Zelda's a great written character in Skyward Sword.
And the fact that we actually get to see so much of her at the beginning, at least, that's not normal.
Yeah, she's not just like, the damsel in distress in the tower or whatever that you have to go save like she has been. She's like well written. This is definitely by far my favorite incarnation of the Zelda character in any of the Zelda games. And like you said, because like she's just your friend, I think she might, her dad, like the owl man, the guy who looks like a bird, like he is like maybe like the mayor of Skyloft or something like that.
Also,
so
his
like,
eyes,
you were talking with the Mario golf thing about how none of them blink. That motherfucker does not blink.
He does, but it doesn't matter because he's just got such big fucking.
Well, I think the whole idea is that he is the proto owl, right? Like the owl that comes and like gives you hints and shit. Like he's supposed to be like the version of that, I don't think I'm like spoiling anything necessarily, but it's
got
like
the eyebrow for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's definitely what he's styled after anyway. Right. And I think that's another thing that's just really fun about this game is like, this is the earliest game in the Zelda timeline. So they have all these little things that if you've been playing the Zelda series for a long time, you're like, oh, this is where like this part of the legend comes from. You know what I mean? And kind of this repeating stuff. I think it's great.
I just want to talk more about his eyebrows. Like, where does his eyebrows end and his hairline begins? Like, is it his hair or is it his eyebrows?
He seems like
Answer
a really
the question, Patrick.
He seems
yeah,
like
Patrick,
really...
you know the answer. We know you do.
Oh, they don't. They just go together.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
He just seems super chill too. I think his character is really funny to me because he's like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll delay the start of the thing, for you. Yeah, you're friends with my daughter. Oh, she's missing. You'll find her.
No, he totally is like, hey, dude, if you have time, like, could you find my missing daughter maybe? Like, he's very chill about it.
Randomly talking about things. What do y'all think about obviously a lot of the changes that were made address a lot of the criticisms of the game from like the, the things that they could change that aren't intrinsic to the game, like, and playing through it, it's really noticeable. I feel like I progressed a lot more quickly at the beginning. Maybe because I've played it before too, but and it just felt a little bit more fluid, picking things up. You know, you don't get the dialogue when you restart and all that kind of stuff. And I was able to say, hey, I don't need you to explain things to me to Fee.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, which was nice. But there's a lot of criticism of this game that aren't related to those changes about difficulty and backtracking and bosses and stuff like that. And while I haven't yet got far enough into this to kind of rethink my position on those things, what do y'all think? Do y'all think those are fair criticisms of this game? Yes and no?
Yeah, the criticisms are like going from the world back up to the sky, back to the world, back up to the sky, back to the world. It's like a lot of that. I haven't experienced that yet. I'm not that far into the game yet. But I do remember feeling that way when I was playing the game on Wii.
Yeah. What about you, Matt Hobbie? Does any of this stuff, have you encountered it either this time or on the Wii? Did you feel that way? It's okay to not feel that way, because I don't, you know.
It's interesting playing it again now. I'm running into some of these locations. I haven't played it since it released, so I'm running into some of these locations. I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be underwater or something, and then you start to think, and you're like, no, I just come back to this area and it's underwater later.
Right.
So it is interesting. Yes, it's a little bit of an issue, but I mean, I don't mind it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do think, I definitely do wish that there were more than like 3 biomes, which is really it, right? There's like the sky, right, which is like your hub, but there's not a ton to do there. And it's like, you know, it's very much like the ocean in Wind Waker, you know, where it's like you've got little things here and there. But it feels like it's even a little bit less in Skyward Sword. A lot of those are just like big rocks, you know what I mean? And so you know, that, and then there's really only the 3 areas. And then the way that they stretch that out is by, again, like revisiting. But every time you do go back, you do open up different parts of the area that you didn't have before. And that never really quite bothered me as much as it did with other people. I just think that people yearn for a bit more like biodiversity and like different areas. And I think most Zelda games are really good at that. You know, even Ocarina of Time, I think, was really good at that. You know, there are lots of different kinds of areas. Where this feels like a little bit less, but I think it also like works for the story, and I think it's okay, and I think it's fine because, you know, you're like a stranger in a strange land in this game, right? Like, you know, no one's really been down to the surface. So I think if he was just like, oh yeah, I know all these different places and I go to all these different things, it wouldn't necessarily work with the story so much anyway. So at the end of the day, no, I don't feel like this game is too repetitive, and I think that like, if they hadn't put in these quality of life changes that really streamline the game quite a bit, I think a lot more people would be complaining about that this go round. But I do think that the game is just faster to play, and not being interrupted by Fee is like amazing. I'm so into it. You know, I see the sword flashing and then I'm like, great, I need to figure something out on my own. And then I do. And then it's like an extra challenge that I have, and I feel good because I figured it out on my own and I didn't have to ask her, you know? And so I think it's a really good way to streamline the game, and it's working for me.
Yeah, and anytime anybody starts talking to you, if you're like, well, I kind of know this, you can just speed up or just completely skip the dialogue as well.
Yeah. I like that the characters now have like bubbles over their heads instead of just auto engaging in conversation. Like, that's a new change. That's really helpful. You don't have to do the side quests, or at least, you know, before you had to like listen to them and then tell them whether or not you're going to help them. And now you can just skip them entirely, which is really great.
Yeah, I don't think I even realized that. I think that's what made me progress faster at the beginning, because I was like, you know I'm going to come back here. I don't need to talk to everybody in Skyloft before I live. Whereas the first time I played it, I was like, I want to see everything up here before I go down to the surface. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't want to find your fucking kid. All right.
I also want to fly.
I got bigger fish to fry. Okay. Birdman told me to find his daughter.
But I do. Yeah, I think it's a very minor gripe, but I do think it'd be cool if there was more to do in the sky. It's kind of fun to fly on the Loftwing, and it'd be cool if there are a few islands or whatever, but there's not much to do at them, and it's yeah, it would have been cool to have more incentive to explore the sky area.
Where's our Ganon's Fury up in the sky?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that really would be awesome. But I mean, it's like it makes more sense for like a platforming game like Mario, I suppose, than to just like add on a bunch of fun challenges.
Come on, Nintendo, give us that Plessy loft wing.
Yeah, it's like Pilot Wings, but with the loft wing. Yeah.
All right, now I'm disappointed that's not in the game. Let's cut out all the bullshit here and cut right to the chase. Are you guys playing with motion controls or button controls?
Motion.
Yeah.
Motion.
Yeah. So I was primarily playing with button controls because I was playing in handheld until today. Matt, Hobbie, you actually said this in our Discord chat about doing this episode, or I think you were like, fuck button controls. And I was like, oh, I better go try motion controls before we record. And I was like, oh shit, this is so much better.
Really?
I think it's just so much more intuitive. I don't know. So I guess
the game was designed around it, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like made for that, right? So makes sense.
I have a lot to say about this, so y'all jump in and whatever, and I'll get the different parts out at different times. But just switching to it felt like switching from something that was causing me a little bit of frustration that I think I would have gotten used to, but to something that felt a lot more intuitive. There's like, oh, no point. I've been trying to get used to that. You know what I mean? Like holding down the left shoulder button to move the camera around does not feel intuitive just because every other game doesn't do that. And so I'm very often pulling out the sword by flicking the right stick by accident and then realizing, oh, I need to put this, then I need to put my sword up. And that happens like every 3 minutes. It feels like, you know.
I really wish there was an option to make it to where
the reverse.
When you press L, you ready your sword.
Yep.
Rather than doing the camera, because it's like
that would make things so much better.
The reverse would make a million times more sense. I think, and that should probably be the default, but yes, at least give me the option to do that because I'm just so used to moving the right stick for a camera that it would not feel weird to hold down the button to use it for the sword. Right.
Right.
Not at all.
I don't hate the button controls like a lot of people seem to. I mean, I think out of all of us on the show right now, I probably like the button controls the most. A lot of that is because I've kind of been forced to a little bit. Full disclosure, I'm playing Patrick's copy of this game. I expected to pick this up, run around a little bit and be like, okay, yeah, it's Skyward Sword. But then I've been kind of sucked into it and I've been playing it a lot more than I expected to. So thank you, Patrick, for buying the copy of the game. But it's like Nintendo recently, I think, changed or updated the way that like airplane mode works on the Switch. Because it used to be
docked.
Well, no, you can do it docked, but you can't. Like they made it to where basically before it was like you can't connect wireless controllers to this in airplane mode, but then you just could. And I think they shut that off. Right. So it's like, so I've been playing handheld because like your kid has been playing Game Builder Garage or some shit or whatever. And I like can't play your game without going into airplane mode. So I've been playing handheld and I actually really am liking it quite a bit. And I think that actually the game is a lot easier with the button controls than it is with motion controls. Now, I played through the game entirely with motion controls on the Wii, and I actually really like that. I'm a big proponent of the motion controls in this game. I definitely do prefer them probably at the end of the day. But I do think the game is quite a bit easier. I think like, you know, especially when you're fighting... Well, flying and swimming and stuff are like definitely, I wish there was a way to mix and match. But I think just fighting enemies, you know, when they're putting up blocks in certain directions, I find myself whenever I like make the move, they've already moved to block it in the other in motion control mode. But whenever I'm playing with the stick, I can way more easily do swipes quickly, right? Which I think is pretty cool. And so I like them both.
David, you just got to get good.
bro, look, I'm working my arms out. Okay, I'm fast. I got a hair trigger hand. No, but it's like, yeah, I like them both. Is what I'm saying. I'm really glad there's an option. But yeah, I don't hate it as much as you guys.
I don't know that I hated it. I just found that the motion controls were easier after using the button controls, and I switched to it, I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna mostly do this, but I will probably continue to play in handheld some and play with the buttons because it's fine. The other thing is too, I feel like y'all chime in if you agree, disagree, but I feel like the motion controls on the Switch are better than they were on the Wii. I mean, I feel like the way I'm holding the Joy-Cons and having two sticks to move the I mean, maybe it's just having free camera, you know what I mean, is enough, but like it feels better to me, and it's been a while, so I don't remember.
I think it's the 60 FPS also. The game is now like it's doubled the frames per second, and so there's double the input possibility for motion. So it's going to be more precise because, it's just at a higher frame rate.
From just a tactile perspective too, I think just holding two Joy-Cons feels better to me than a nunchuck and a Wiimote.
It's like if you were holding a Wii remote and a nunchuck, you had like the cord that connected them. And so you were always like hitting yourself with the cord or something like that. But with Joy-Cons, you just hitting yourself with the Joy-Cons.
It could have been unrelated, but it happened. And when I was playing Skyward Sword a lot, I have cubital tunnel syndrome. And for some reason I was having a bad episode when I played through Skyward Sword. And I always kind of blamed, I always kind of blamed it on the way that I was holding those things. And I, in general, don't have that problem with the form factor of the Switch. And it could be just I have better lifestyle. I've made lifestyle changes and adjusted, and I go through periods where I have episodes and don't. But so mentally, that might be why I think it's better too.
Sure. I think it felt more natural to play this game on the Wii just because like the Wiimote was like a big chunky. It just felt like the hilt of a sword. You know what I mean? This feels like I've got a little dainty, wafer in my hand and I'm swinging it around. And so it's like, I just think that's personally how I feel. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't matter. Like it still feels good. The motion controls feel good. And like you said, Patrick, I do think it is more responsive than it was originally. The main issue really is having to constantly realign your cursor, right? Because there's no Wii bar.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys if you're having that issue, because it seems like every time I pull out the Beetle or something, I have to recalibrate. It's either I forget where the cursor is on the screen or it's just all out of whack. And then the screen starts jetting off to the side until I recalibrate.
Yeah, that's one frustration is I'm always, before I attack, and to David, to your point earlier, like people are always blocking me, blocking my motion controls because I have to point it at the TV first, press Y, and then do the motion to activate the sword in a specific direction. It's just that split second makes me also bad at this game.
You're just doing it wrong. You got to swing it till you kill him. Throw your arm
wildly.
Yeah. So they say don't waggle, but you should certainly just waggle.
There are times it does work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. When you're up against like 7 dudes at once, you're like, how am I not supposed to just waggle here? Yeah.
We talked about the upgraded visuals a bit. Do y'all, I was thinking about like, what's the other Wii game that they remade for the Switch or whatever, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I feel like this game looks better than that one, but I also don't know how y'all feel about it. This is maybe not as much to, that's a bigger game maybe. So
yeah, it's a bigger open world.
Yeah, I think the character models look great in both games. Zelda, they cleaned them up really nice. The one thing I did notice, and I don't know why it bugs me so much, but the goddess statue does not look good. It doesn't look sharp like the rest of the game, the environments, whatever. But
the L targeting reticle is a little low res. It seems like the arrow that pops up over people's heads. But sorry, yeah, you think the characters?
But like Xenoblade, the characters all look great in it. It's the environments that kind of, I feel, don't look quite as good as the Zelda remake. But it is a much larger game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it just comes down to good art direction, like it's nothing to write home about really graphically. There's no like crazy tricks going on. It's just kind of good old fashioned art direction. That's what Nintendo's always been really good at, right? The first party Nintendo games always have solid art direction, and they made the most out of the system that it was at the time. And so when they upscaled it, it just looked good as it was, you know? And I think it's, you know, and I've seen comparisons between like running the game in Dolphin and 4K and then the game in 1080p on the Switch, and it looks better on the Switch. So they've put some work into it, you know what I mean? Despite it being at a lower resolution than if you just upscaled everything. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with whatever they've done to update that, be it some AI upscaling or whatever. And then yeah, I think just this is the first 3D Zelda game that's been 60 frames per second in 1080p. You know, that's just like pretty big, and it like feels really good to play this game in 60 frames per second. It just like moves really good. It looks really sharp, and it's just like, and it's rock steady too. I haven't seen any slowdown at all anywhere. So I'm really happy with it, and I really hope that this like means we'll be getting more Wii ports to the Switch. I'd love to see Donkey Kong Country Returns and Kirby's Epic Yarn, and a lot of these games move over to the Switch for sure.
I mean, honestly, it's great that people are enjoying Skyward Sword again. I feel like a lot of people passed up Skyward Sword because they heard about the wonky motion controls. But now that lots of people have Nintendo Switches, they get to experience this game in a new way with better quality of life enhancements at 60 frames per second, running at 1080p with all the models look great. It's nice. I think for the most part, people were really negative at the beginning, but I think now that people have their hands on it and then they're playing it, it's mostly a positive reaction to it. Whether you disagree or disagree with the $60 price, I think that's up to you and your wallet.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. I'm enjoying it.
Everybody's here has played it before, and I think the answer is probably yes, based on the conversation, right? But if you played it before and you're like, I don't know, is it worth replaying? To y'all, do you think maybe that $60 might not?
I wish it was $40 for sure. Yeah. I think this would have been a great $40 release. I think Twilight Princess HD when it released was $40 on the Wii U, and that just was a much more fair price. I mean, it is a 10-year-old game without any new content. The quality of life stuff is great, but it's like, come on, like I think a lot of people would have picked this up at 40. I mean, I guess a lot of people are going to pick it up anyway. Yeah. But like it does make it a little hard really to recommend. It just depends on how much you like Ocarina of Time style 3D Zelda games. If you're way into them and you haven't played this game yet, then this is a no-brainer. I think if you have played the game and you enjoyed it, or maybe even didn't enjoy it, and you feel like you still have that memory in your head, it might not be worth shelling out $60 to play this game again. That's really a question you have to ask yourself, of how much of a Nintendo cuck you are.
Very.
So, yeah. I mean, so I wanted to buy this game because we were doing this podcast, and I wouldn't buy any of these major releases so we can talk about them.
Thank you, Patrick. I was also playing your version.
But like this question of, is it like, I never finished it the first time around, and is it worth playing or with replaying? I pretty instantly felt like this is worth it. Like I'm pretty into it. And that your mileage may vary. Everybody's different, whatever. But I don't know. I think I'm really glad to give this game a second chance with all these upgrades and stuff. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's a great game. It's like an 8 or 9, right, out of 10. Like for me, if I had to rate it, right, and it's like an 8 or 9 out of 10 Nintendo game, and that shit is like always fun. It's like. You at this point, you should know Nintendo makes like good games. It's like, even though it's like, like, oh, I don't know if it's like really worth 60. It's like still better than like most games that are 60. That's a great game.
Yeah. Well, is there there's one thing I wanted to kind of bring up that's not exactly about Skyward Sword. So maybe we can return to Skyward Sword if there's anything we missed. But what do y'all think that there's, I couldn't help but think when I'm falling as Link from the sky near the beginning, when you're falling to the earth of the Breath of the Wild sequel trailer, where they show a shot that's very similar, the fact that they are putting out this game now, do you think that there is any relationship, or do you think that they are just doing that for pure marketing reasons to try to sell us on this game, or both? You
can skydive in this game too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does. they could just be playing up those similarities to sell this and to get people to talk about what I am now talking about. And I think that's fine if that's what they did, but it does make you wonder if there is something more substantial to the story or gameplay or something for the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
I feel like there's got to be some sort of nod to this game in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Whether I think they tie together, I don't really think so. Based on Breath of the Wild, this game happened, Skyward Sword happened before it, so the Master Sword is there. And if the sequel to Breath of the Wild is taking place after Breath of the Wild, I don't know if they're going to tie together all that much, but I definitely think there's going to be some nods to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting. We've been speculating a lot about time travel in Breath of the Wild 2. It'd be interesting if one of the places that you time traveled to, like the thing where we see Link like skydiving, is like maybe after Skyloft is hit with like a fucking meteorite or something, and then all these, like, it splits into all these islands, and it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic Skyward Sword. You know what I mean? Like that could be kind of interesting. That's me pulling that out of my ass. So that's not based on anything.
Maybe we're going to get Link turning around and finally see his face, and we're going to get the giant eyebrow.
Yeah.
Never know.
He's like, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. I think it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B as far as what you're talking about with marketing too, Patrick. I think it's like, okay, like this is definitely got some similarities. And I bet they're going to use that Loftwing amiibo in Breath of the Wild too.
Let's hope there's Loftwings. That would be cool.
Yeah. There's Sky Islands. Come on.
Is there anything else y'all want to talk about that we either glossed over or didn't get around to for this re-release of Skyward Sword?
Cruise for Smash.
Cruise for Smash.
That would kill. Just going back to like the music is so good in this game. And when Skyward Sword came out, that's when they were doing, I think maybe the first couple years of the Symphony of the Goddess, the Zelda symphony that was touring. And they played a lot of these things from Skyward Sword. And it just reminds me of those times that I've seen Symphony of the Goddess like 4 or 5 times. And if you want to play this game, the gameplay's great, graphics are great, but the music, it's like top-notch Zelda music.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like the whole like theme of this game too is like a reversed Zelda's Lullaby. The da 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 da. Like it's straight up just they flipped it and it just happened to work really, really well, and then they went with it. So it's got like a lot of those preliminary legend stuff in it. It's I just love how this game like touches on all the other games because of where it is, and that applies to the music as well. It's incredible. I also think it's funny that like motion control haters are like becoming like big on motion controls because they try the button controls and they're like, motion controls are better. And it's like, see, motion controls are always fine. Fuck you. Anyway, that's my final thought.
Anything, Matt, Hobbie, do you want to share as a final thought on Skyward Sword HD?
If you haven't played it, go play this game. The story is amazing. The origin of the Master Sword was shocking to me. When I get the first sword in the game and it's not the Master Sword, you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then each time you each time you upgrade it, you're just sitting there, oh, is it going to be the final form? No. Nope. And then when you finally get it, it clicks. It's quite something.
Girahim is like all the villains and some of the characters. We talked about some of the Skyloft characters, but like Girahim, kind of the main villain in this, is so fun, so flamboyant, so much energy. I just love
very, very Bowie. I think
I love all this energy that it brings to a Zelda game. It's so good.
You think he's part anteater with the weird tongue?
Yeah. David, I interrupted. You were about to say something.
Yeah. Also, just man, it's just really some of the best dungeon design in the entire Zelda franchise in this game. the way the dungeons are laid out is just like, you can just tell it's been like, a solid like couple decades of experience of like building out really good puzzles and shit like that. And none of them feel too long. None of them feel too hard. But they do also pose quite a bit of a challenge. And it's just, and that's just something I really hope comes back in Breath of the Wild 2, is like that kind of linearity of like the game doesn't have to be linear, but it's like unlocking new items that then you use to solve all the puzzles in a dungeon is like super fun. And it's just such a great formula. And I think this is just it perfected in the Zelda franchise. And yeah. So if you like that kind of stuff, if that's the kind of stuff you like in a Zelda game, then yeah, you would love this game.
Yeah.
Or if you like Wii bowling, you can bowl the bombs.
That's true. That's true.
Cool. Well, I think then we'll wrap up the discussion there on Skyward Sword, and we'll take a very brief break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the other games that we've been playing recently. Cool. So I've been playing a lot of the same games I've been talking about the last few weeks. So I won't talk about those yet until I have something to say. But I also have been playing a lot of Pikmin 3. My son wanted to play Pikmin 3, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. And we played through the main story again and beat it. And we have played through some of the side missions again and gotten platinum trophies on them and stuff now that we know what we're doing. And we've just been playing a ton of Bingo Battle, the like 2-player versus mode in Pikmin 3. I started to kind of like let him win a little bit, and then he got his confidence up, and now he's actually pretty good at it. And it's all he wants to do is just play Bingo Battle with me, and it's been pretty fun. Like there's like 10 different maps for the mode, which is a decent amount. And then there's also variation each time you go to it. It gives you a different, not every time, but there's a couple of different configurations on each map of which kinds of Pikmin it gives you and which kinds of roadblocks there are and that kind of stuff, and enemies and that kind of stuff. So it stays fresh. I do kind of wish he's like, I wish I could play this against the computer. I wish that was an option because it's not.
Right.
And I think that they could maybe even add some other cool customization to it, but I've been playing a lot of Pikmin 3 Bingo Battle this week.
Very good.
What about y'all?
I'll go next. Skyward Sword. It's so fun to be back in that world. The other thing I said at the top of the show, I've been experimenting with cloud gaming. I got this little controller. It's called a Backbone. You put it into the smartphone. I have an iPhone, so it plugs right into the lightning port. But I got so frustrated with trying to buy a Steam Deck that I'm like, okay, I'm spending all this money. Like, what's the problem I'm trying to solve with throwing money at Valve?
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to play all these emulators on my couch, or like bring a device over to a friend's house and I want to play, Blast Core or Mario 64 with friends, or plug it into a projector and play some old school Mario Party or something like that. I think that's the problem I was trying to solve. And I was like, hey, let me try this and try out xCloud and some other cloud services. So I've been trying like Steam Link and like GeForce Experience, GeForce Now, and all those things. And so far, so good. This controller is pretty dope. The one thing that makes it so easy to use is there's a specially designed app for it. It's called the Backbone app. And it's just really nice. And using Moonlight on your PC, there's like almost no lag, and it runs at 4K.
When you slid that open, it got really big. Is that for like a tablet or something? Could you put it in with a tablet?
It doesn't quite fit
not quite
an
as big
iPad, but it might fit like a pretty large phone.
Gotcha.
And maybe like an iPad mini.
Gotcha.
Not sure.
I mean,
Cool.
Beyond just streaming stuff. I mean, I feel like, you can download emulators like from the store pretty easily. Or I don't know if those are on the Apple store, but I know on Android, like there are tons of emulators.
Yeah.
That you could just have the games natively on your phone and play it that way. Like Symphony of the Night mobile, I think would be great with one of those.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, like, can you play mobile games with it too?
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like $3 on the Apple store.
Yeah, most people like the biggest reviewers are a lot of people that play Call of Duty mobile, and they're like, "Oh, it's changed.
Right.
It's changed the game. I love playing. I played on my phone. I never played on console anymore. I just play this nonstop." And then there are people like big nerds like us. They're like Chrono Trigger and like Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
Not that Call of Duty people aren't nerds, because they're different kinds of nerds.
Just different.
No, they're jocks.
Yeah. It's just the long story short is like xCloud, not great experience. There's lots of input lag, but the fact that I could play, I play Halo 5 quite frequently. I was playing Halo 5 on my iPad with my 8-bit DOE AirPlay to my television. I mean, the input lag was atrocious, but the fact that we have the technology, it feels so close. It's cool.
Yeah. I'll go next. I've been playing a few things. I've obviously been playing Skyward Sword, like we were talking about. I wanted to get a little further in that, but I've been pretty busy over the past few days. But I've been playing some other stuff just in my free time. One of which I've been playing through Super Mario Brothers 2 for the Game Boy Advance. Just that I've kind of realized that I've never beaten that game. Like that's a game that like I've started a number of times and I've played the first like few worlds like over and over and over again and just never actually beaten that game. And that game is so goddamn fun. And the Game Boy Advance version is the best version of that game.
Is that a remaster, remake?
Yeah. That's I mean, it was Super Mario Advance. That's Super Mario Brothers 2 is what it was called. Yeah. They did all the 2D Mario games redone on Game Boy Advance, which are all great. The Super Mario Brothers 3 version on Game Boy Advance is incredible. But yeah, no, it's awesome. You have to put up with Mario going, I'm a winner or whatever. Or he's always like, he's like, I like it, tasty, or like, well, they say weird shit. It's like you don't need voices in 2D Mario games. But anyway, that has been super fun. I've been playing a lot more Tony Hawk as well. I've beaten Tony Hawk 2 and like unlocked Skate Heaven and all that, and now I'm like going through and trying to get the last few things on Tony Hawk 1. So really enjoying that game still. And then, I also downloaded Twinkle Star Sprites, the arcade game. Are you guys familiar with Twinkle Star Sprites?
I saw your tweet, which was all it said,
talking about?
All lowercase Twinkle Star Sprites.
Yeah. Which got like, it got pretty viral. No, I'm just kidding. It was like 5 people liked it. But it was like it's just a great game. It's an arcade game. It's like a competitive shoot 'em up, which is really fun and kind of unique still to this day. It's like kind of takes the best parts of like Japanese arcade puzzle games and Japanese arcade fighting games and puts them in the shoot 'em up or shmup genre. So it's like, you're both on either side shooting enemies as they come down. You're shooting up and you're avoiding stuff. But then also if you chain explosions together, then those go over to your opponent. And that's like another thing that they have to avoid. And it's just like a great, fun SNK arcade classic. Jordan Willis, I hope you're listening, introduced me to this game quite a while ago. And so it was nice to finally pick it up. In fact, I tweeted Twinkle Star Sprites just because I was thinking about the game. And not because I actually owned the game. And then like people started liking it and everybody was like, yeah. And then I felt like a poser. And so I bought it. But it's great. It's a really great game. And I wish it was like on Nintendo Switch Online because I'd love to play this online with people. But I digress. But that's basically what I've been playing this week. Matt Hobbie, what have you been playing, man?
Well, it has been a beautiful week up in Minnesota. So I've not been playing a lot. I got my kid out to the beach. I'm too afraid to get in the water because, Shark Week. But when we're not doing that, I've been playing Skyward Sword. My kid comes and he takes the Wii remote and he is the sword.
Nice.
It's really hard to play.
Yeah, sounds like it.
That being said, I'd like to thank Nintendo for putting all the assists in Mario Kart. Because I can just give him the controller and he kind of hangs on to it and does the tilt controls and has a blast.
Yeah, that's a great early game.
Other than that, just chipping away at Age of Calamity DLC. One of the 7 people that bought that.
You and our previous guest. Yeah.
Yes, it's actually better than the base game, I think. But
Oh, really?
Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But that's about all I've been playing.
Very nice.
I've never thought about playing Skyward Sword as quote unquote 2-player by handing the Joy-Con to someone else. That sounds really fun. It sounds like a fun drunk party game.
There was on IGN, I think Brian Altano and Zach, I forget his last name right now, but they did a series called Link Together, which was where one of them played with the left Joy-Con to move Link and the other one used the right Joy-Con to like do all the buttons basically. And it was totally chaotic and a blast. And I really recommend you look up that video series. I kind of wish they did more of that because that was a lot of entertainment.
That sounds like a good GDQ speedrun event for Skyward Sword. Is a two people.
Yeah, one person controls the shield, one controls the sword. That's great.
Well, awesome then. That just about does it. Thank you, Matt Hobbie, for coming on and talking to us this week. Very nice to have you on the podcast. Appreciate that. Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, I am PDYX.
Hey, I'm Matthew on Twitter, MATHYOU.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Matt? Where can people find you online?
Well, I'm pretty flaky on the socials, so Discord.
Very good.
On the Switch Headz Discord, yeah.
Yeah. Steve Irwin on Discord. Unfortunately, not the real Steve Irwin. Not that I don't like you, but I just wish he was still with us to this.
Yeah, there you go. On Discord.
And also, I don't like I don't like necromancy, so.
Yeah, that's fair. Very good. Well, if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are on Twitter at Switch Headz. We are on we are on Instagram and Facebook at Super Switch Headz. And then, of course, like has just been plugged again. I think you're the third guest in a row that's just plugged our Discord for like where to find them online. So that works for us. Make sure you join our Discord. It's such a great community. It's growing every day. And man, just some of the best people out there in the world are in our Discord. So make sure you join up. And we got our Facebook group as well, which is also great. Not to trash anybody who's in the Facebook group. They're both great communities. You should join both of those. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our episode on Skyward Sword. What a fun one. Go out and play the game if you haven't yet. It's definitely a classic and overlooked. And so I'm glad that they did put this out for the Switch. And thanks again, Matt Hobbie, for joining us on today's episode. We're going to be back next week with some very special guests, or a very special guest, rather. Not going to say what it is, but oh boy, you guys are in for a treat, especially if you like video games. We're going to go. That's it. There's a Delta variant going around. So, maybe be a little careful out there. I mean, and if you're not vaccinated, like, fucking come on, man. Like, this is why we're having these issues right now. Get on it. Your brain's not gonna fry. You're not gonna get chipped. You'll just maybe save a couple lives. So try to do that if you can. In fact, don't try, just fucking do it. We love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.